at Bank of Tennessee. And on behalf of Women Empowered program, I want to thank you all for coming to this event. It's going to be a good one today with Amanda. So, as many of you know, Bank of Tennessee is a local business, and we face the challenges that many of you in the room as business owners and leaders face with competition, with the changing technology, with regulations, whether that's from hiring policies and procedures that you need to follow, retaining customers, and acquiring new ones. And the list can go on and on. If you think back, it's been a couple years since Women Empower was started by Bank of Tennessee for really events like this. Education moments where you can learn something. Hopefully you had some time to network, get to know some people that maybe you don't know, and see some faces that you don't see very often. And so we're hoping that you feel inspired by coming to some of these events to really make sure that your business continues to thrive, you get some answers to questions you might have, and know that you have a resource at the bank. So today is just another example of our series of meetings and seminars that we're offering, and we're very excited to have Amanda Valentine here, designer and founder of Valentine Valentine. And just like you, Amanda has those same challenges. And so today she's going to share her story. I know we're going to be inspired, and she's going to be giving us some advice. And I think when you leave, you're going to be able to find your own voice. So with that, welcome Amanda Valentine.
I've got my wine, most importantly. Okay, is that working? So I've got some notes I'll be reading. If I don't refer to these, I will go off on a tangent about like sock wear trends of the 70s or something crazy, something totally boring. So I'm thrilled to be here. I did a runway show last night, so my eyes are a little bit bloodshot. And I got here right at 5:30 from Nashville, drove in from Nashville. This morning I had to wake up at about 5 a.m. and finish a dress for a client of mine that hopefully she'll wear it. I hope this isn't a build up to nothing. Hopefully she'll wear it on Saturday Night Live this weekend. So that is worth getting no sleep for the opportunity. So yeah, I'm kind of vibrating with caffeine right now, but we'll get through it. So my name's Amanda Valentine, and I am a clothing designer and wardrobe stylist, or I usually like to say I make clothes and I dress people in clothes. I love clothes. And I feel like I'm in a group of like-minded individuals. I think we're all used to creative problem solving and kind of trying to stand out. And I just love being in a room full of powerful women. I'm a huge feminist, I'll talk about it a lot. I'm skipping ahead. So I was also on Project Runway. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. That's, I think, how a lot of people know me. We were talking about it earlier. Sometimes people come up to me and they go, I know you from somewhere. And I say, I was in your living room Thursday nights. That was probably it. So I'm obsessed with fashion, primarily for the reason that I consider it the last truly democratic art form. Everyone participates in it, whether or not they admit it. Even if you're anti-fashion, that's still kind of a fashion statement, I think. And for it to live, it needs to be consumed. And I'm kind of obsessed with an art that has to be purchased, that has to be worn, that has to be chosen. That's exciting to me. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. I love that. So, you know, as much as I want to say, I'm going to talk about leading a creative life and what it took for me to discover my brand message. I will talk about all that. But I also think that I should, this is a hilarious little picture. I also think I should call this talk, How I Gained Confidence Through the Ego-Shattering, Vanity-Crushing World of Reality Television. Or I also thought of another title on the way. Tim Gunn is cooler and smarter than all of us. He really is. He's absolutely the coolest. That's a question I always get. So here's my backstory and more goofy pictures. So I grew up the youngest of 5 children in Lincoln, Nebraska, born to a beauty queen mother and professor father I'm a Gemini, so I'm obsessed with opposites. There's a big opposite. My parents told us two things growing up. They said, work hard and be nice. Luckily for me, they were very supportive of our varied interests. Look, I'm pointing at. Oh my goodness. I like to steal my mom's old nylons and old drapes, and she could have said that's totally inappropriate for an 8-year-old, but she just let me do it anyway. So after stealing Christmas garland and discarded drapery and creating this killer holiday look, my parents lovingly bought me a Vogue subscription and after-school sewing lessons. I would memorize the designers and the editorials and ask my siblings to quiz me. They usually wouldn't. Once a week after junior high school, I was dropped off at Sheila Sievert's house. She taught me the framework of pattern making and the tedious art of clothing construction. If any of you sew, you know it can sometimes be so tedious. My mother made our clothing growing up. I feel like I'm probably the last generation where that's the case. And she often took over entire rooms with her giant quilt frame and would hand tie quilts. And I was obsessed with watching it. It just fascinated me. So around the same time I was watching my mother do this, I discovered feminism. And I saw sewing as this dying, traditionally feminine art. And I kind of took that on as it's my mission in life to really make sewing cool again and kind of celebrate these traditionally feminine arts, kind of not thought of much outside of the home, kind of bringing them to the forefront. So to put myself through college, I worked, these are hilarious, I worked as a janitor and makeup artist, again with the opposites, and rode my bike between jobs and classes, diving headfirst into the conceptual foundations of my aesthetic. I took myself very seriously. In college, I was desperate to be a unique and vibrant artist. I'd say I caught a few eye rolls when I started bringing in insane fabrics to shred, which I did this morning for a client. See, it still works. And piece back together. I mean, that was made out of newspaper. I don't know why they made us model them. That's ridiculous. But that weird neck piece is felt. That's newspaper and plastic on the left. Yeah, I think people were thought I was ridiculous with what I would bring in for projects. I would kind of endlessly reference traditional Guatemalan weaving or West African color schemes, just huge nerd. In one textiles class, this is true, we were given a choice of yarn techniques to learn, so most people chose knitting and crocheting. Of course, most practical. I chose, no joke, macrame and ancient Peruvian net making. I'm like, what? That's so dorky. So I made some very, very ugly things. Looking back, I realized that I was testing the boundaries of my chosen industry. Fashion is really, really fun to mess with. There's so much to make fun of. But looking back, really, I was just doing the work. And I hope you've heard this before because it's brilliant and it should be stamped on the forehead of every 18-year-old creative person. And it would have saved me a lot of turmoil. But Ira Glass said, this is kind of long, but it's so worth it. Oh, there's another weirdo thing. Like, what's that guy in the back? That's so weird. Okay. So nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple of years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out or you are still in this phase, you gotta know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you will finish one story, or in my case, one dress. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's gonna take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just gotta fight your way through. So that's not for you, that's for me, and to explain that stuff you just saw. I'm still doing my work, and I love to come back to this and not beat myself up about learning and making mistakes and making ugly dresses. That was very clearly student work, but I was definitely just beginning when I graduated from college and decided to move to Los Angeles to live with my big brother. I basically did whatever he said. I had zero desire to move to New York. I knew it was kind of fashion career suicide not to move there, but I knew and still know that I'm not built for that city. It would eat me alive. I don't want to live there. I don't want to pay that rent. I don't want to walk down those streets. So my brother introduced me to a relatively unknown profession at the time. This was a long time ago, wardrobe styling. So this was before fashion blogs. This was before everyone knew who Rachel Zoe was. I didn't learn about wardrobe styling in college. And this was before the general public knew or realized that all of their favorite red carpet looks were not actually picked by the actors. They were picked by a team. So after being dropped off in a costume rental house for my first job for 5 hours, said, pick out this, I discovered I loved styling. I love being on set. I love 14-hour days. I don't know why. My first wardrobe job was my brother's band's first music video, Maroon 5's Harder to Breathe. Little side note, my brother's a rock star. Crazy. So as I was learning the ropes, and then I also worked on a Diet Coke commercial. I worked on this insane My Chemical Romance video that nearly killed me. So as I was learning the ropes on the West Coast, I set up a sewing studio in the garage of a house I shared with my brother and, maybe you've heard of him, Adam Levine. We all shared a house. And we also stored cars in my first studio. And I figured I could, put up IKEA drapes and shield my eyes from the oil stains. And the nicer and nicer cars that were starting to be parked in the garage. Did I lose it? Okay. So I watched my brother's band grow and grow and grow. I just like this picture of him. Oh, just kidding, that's not. So I don't know if you can tell which one's my brother. If my hair was down, you could. He's the one in the middle because he's super tall. So they put him in the back. So here's the true story of how I got to Tennessee. I'll tell you guys the real story. While in LA, I started dating a poet. I was in my 20s, don't judge me, who eventually suggested a move to Nashville. I had never been to Nashville. I had never even been to the South at all. I had no idea what to expect, but after one visit, I was convinced. I just absolutely fell in love with it. I can't really explain it. I saw Nashville as kind of splitting, look at my beautiful city, I still love it, as kind of splitting the difference between Nebraska, where I grew up, and LA, which was a little too big. It was kind of the porridge that was just right. I just needed something in between. So this simpler, gentler place would surely allow me more time and space to play around with these ideas in my head, maybe actually become a designer. I drove across country to my new home, kind of fantasizing about nourishing this creative little child inside of me. Well, instead, when I got to Nashville, I owned a vintage shop and played in a couple bands. Always with a dusty sewing machine and neglected dress form and empty sketch pad tucked away in the corner. In the meantime, I did the work, dropping in the bucket of my 10,000 hours, always designing on the side. If you don't, I belong to the Church of Malcolm Gladwell. If you don't know Malcolm Gladwell, read all of his books tomorrow. So he has this idea that it takes roughly $10,000 hours of deliberate practice to master a skill. And if you kind of figure that out, it's usually about 10 years, and it really does make a lot of sense. It's kind of pop psychology, but it makes a lot of sense. So I was definitely kind of chipping away at those 10,000 hours, but I was, playing in a garage rock band at the time too, which was super fun, but I kind of had to quit because I got stage fright. So, so that kind of leads me to the dramatic twist in my story that I was never expecting. I never thought about being on TV. I never wanted to be on TV. I never wanted to be the face of my brand. I named my clothing line Valentine Valentine so I could kind of hide behind it. I wasn't a rock star like my brother. I wasn't built like he was. And I wasn't an actress like my sister. Everyone else. I'm the quiet one in my family, so it was just never, I'm a delicate little creative, I'm fragile. I'm a fragile flower. But I auditioned for Project Runway because a rash of Nashville designers were contacted, and I thought, I'll go for it. I've watched the show since season 1. I was obsessed with it. I loved that people finally saw how hard we work and how difficult it is, and it was like fashion Hunger Games. It was just always my favorite show. So anyway, I made a video, I submitted photos of my work, I filled out page after page about my family, my upbringing, my passions, Nebraska to LA and everything. And there was a lot of paperwork, and I remember my doctor being falsely excited 2 years in a row because she had to fill out Amanda won't drop dead during filming paperwork twice. She was so excited. And I also had to go through a psychiatric screening that deemed me possibly too stable for reality TV. I swear he said that. I was like, oh, should I get out now? So after 2 years of auditioning, making it to the finals and not getting on, I just kind of gave up and I thought, I never wanted to be on TV anyway, I'm too cool. So I really invested in my styling career. This was so fun. I worked very hard, built great relationships, got to work on really cool stuff, could even design custom pieces for some of my spots. This was a Verizon commercial, and I made everything you see. Every single piece of fabric that you see on the screen was a futuristic restaurant scene. It was so much fun. We couldn't find the right costumes, so the director said, hey, you know how to sew, right? So that was actually a blast. And then these guys, 21 Pilots, they're kind of my biggest client. I still work with them all the time. But they needed, matching quilted leather white hoodies. So, okay, I guess I'll make matching quilted leather white hoodies. And within all that, I still kind of kept up with my clothing line enough that most people didn't realize and still don't realize that I paid a majority of my bills dressing country stars for soda ads. Still do. So here's the thing, wardrobe styling is so satisfying to me. I used to think I had to choose. I find an immense amount of satisfaction bringing an artist's vision into the tangible realm of clothing, just from hearing a song and knowing what they should look like. That's very exciting to me. I still style a handful of clients, and I consider it another mission in my life to help people convey their vibe. I'm a hippie, I talk like a hippie. So I want my clients to stay individuals but be identifiable stylistically. And there's, to stand out but be accessible. I'm always talking yin and yang, so there we go again. So let me jump back to college for a minute. My favorite courses were Clothing and Human Behavior and the social and psychological aspects of dress. Told you I was a nerd. So I spent months researching a senior paper on how counterculture movements identify themselves through dress. That is really the meat of my job as a stylist. I'm always eager to identify what kind of fashion I'm interested. Also, I'm not interested in kind of the status-driven $10,000 handbag fashion. I'm interested in the meat of, expressing yourself through dress. I always want to make that clear. My shoes were like 80 bucks. So back to how I style. Here are a few of my clients. And I just think I love this picture. She's so cute. So clearly this girl is probably going to sound fun and upbeat and poppy, a lot like these guys. This is not, a metal band. And they might sound a little bit differently than these guys, who might be a little bit more rustic, who are probably close to these guys, who are a little rougher. but are still way poppier than these guys. These guys are dark. So all of that from an image. I think it's clear. I'm obsessed with that. So, and this is the latest thing we did. I'm just real proud of it. So back to my on-again, off-again romance with cable television. So a couple years go by after I didn't make it on, and my husband randomly suggests that I audition for Project Runway again. It's Friday night, we're playing darts, probably had a couple of beers, I'll be honest, and I decide it's a good idea to email the casting director at 1 a.m. I can't really explain why I thought that was a good idea, besides Coors Light. But something told me it was my time, I wanted to take a leap. Things were really great, but I wanted them to be spectacular. So I sent an email. Hi, it's me. Do you got a spot for me on your show? So Monday morning, they all knew me by this point. So Monday morning at 9 a.m. I get a call. It moves a little bit faster this time. They've kept up with me. They've seen me plugging away, making collections, and I finally kind of fit the casting puzzle. And so I'm a designer on season 11 of Project Runway, and it's my time, right? I love that they caught this just terrified moment. So the first thing I realized after being accepted is I'm terrified to be on television. All these years, I had prepared myself for so much, but never for being on camera. That was not part of my plan. I didn't know which side was my good side, which I do now. I didn't know how I would get along with 15 strangers, which is sometimes not so great. So season 11 of Project Runway will forever be remembered by me as the season of uncomfortability. I'm making up words. These pictures they caught crack me up. So every morning we were woken up by a camera crew in our rooms and faces, and I hid under the bed sheets and just thought, what am I doing here? We wore mics from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. about every day. We weren't allowed to talk to each other off camera, save the drama for the screen. There were no phones, no laptops, no books, no magazines, no television, and no privacy. I talked to my husband twice in 6 weeks for a total of about 10 minutes. And we had just been married a year. Whew. We're still married. So we made it through. So add that to nerves, and now you understand how people just crack on that show. I wonder if that's on purpose. I wonder if they do that. So in classic polite Midwestern form, I bottled the roaring anxiety that was swirling inside of me and was just on my best behavior. I was horrified I would say something wrong, be edited in a horrific light, both literally and metaphorically, and really harsh lighting and HD cameras, it's rough. I was terrified I would embarrass myself, my family, and so I censored my reactions and my thoughts, and in the end I really censored my designs. I was obsessed with what does Nina want, what does Heidi want, what does Tim want me to do, and that's all I thought about. So I heard from the judges time and time again, who are you as a designer? What are you offering us? What are you trying to say? And I was trying desperately to wade through a haze of panic and please everyone. So the unfortunate truth is I've always been pretty concerned with how people view me. I'm built that way. I've always envied people who can be brash and confident or make unpopular decisions. I don't think I'm the only creative person with that problem, or also, as women, I think we're socialized to please, and or we get labels that we're difficult or other things. So I think a lot of creative people have this problem because we want to be really open and accepting, but I think a lot of times we are accepting a lot of other people's crap. That happens. So that's just a really rough path if you're an artist, because the last voice you're listening to is your own. And I found it nearly impossible to resist caving into all these opinions when I was standing in a hot spotlight in front of, industry gurus, picking apart every hemline, every color decision, with 10 cameras on you, literally 10. And it is so stressful, I had an adrenaline hangover for months. So the minute I stopped listening to that weird, beautiful voice inside me is the minute I lost a competition and just the vision for my life's work. And fast forward, let's end this first Project Runway story. This picture. So on Challenge 8 of Season 11, we were instructed to design a mini collection for the Thunder from Down Under. Not exactly what I thought I would be doing as a serious artist. Long story short, I got kicked off for making pretty appalling tearaway pants, and there is a right and wrong way to make them. So after being auf Wiedersehen, I was brought back on camera to help my friend Michelle eventually win. I helped finish her collection. So I felt like I was kind of back in that garage watching Mercedes pull up that weren't mine. It's like, oof, didn't quite get it. So, and after that, it was just kind of a blur. I went back home and nothing much had changed. I would go to the gym and people would, I swear, pull me off of the treadmill to take pictures with them, and I just thought, I'm still kind of nobody. Nothing had changed. So I really wanted to step back and take a look at what had just happened. I thought I was getting designing out of my system, that I would stick with styling, the good, solid career choice. I thought a good crash and burn on national television would get it out of my system, but it didn't. I just had to deal with all the doubts that came up from the show. People didn't hate me. The judges didn't hate me. I was just super boring, which is kind of worse. So I knew two things. I knew that I had experienced a worst case scenario, which is making ugly dresses and then crying about it on national television. That's the worst. And I knew that I really hadn't done my biggest job as an artist, which is articulate the weird universe inside of my head. I hadn't done that at all. So all those realizations are forming, and I met kind of my business mentor, a woman named Van Tucker, who, fast forward, is now the CEO of the Nashville Fashion Alliance, which is very exciting. It's brand new. We're still getting off the ground. I'm on the board. And she introduced herself to me after I spoke at a Nashville Fashion Week panel, and we met over several months. She made me take the Myers-Briggs test. I don't know if you guys have taken that. It changed my life because I didn't know I was an introvert, but that kind of everything made sense. And how I just process things, really the most important thing I realized after spending months of dissecting my strengths and weaknesses is I am a delicate little flower. I hate accounting. I wish I didn't. I wish I was good at it. I'm horrible with money. So now I can kind of emotionally prepare myself for that, and I'm done beating myself up about it. I'm done saying, well, you're a deadbeat because you can't figure. I'm done. I just have different strengths, and I just kind of have to put on my armor and get into my QuickBooks and do it. I still hate it though. So, if nothing else, I was learning those lessons, and I had this little t-shirt business that was starting to blow up, and the universe has really hilarious plans and an amazing sense of humor. And I was back in my hometown of Lincoln, Nebraska, judging the senior fashion show at the university I attended, and go Huskers. And I got a call from the executive producer, Project Runway, and she said, knowing how traumatic it was for me the first time around, she said, "Don't kill me. What if we brought you back?" And I knew I'd have to be voted back, and I thought nobody remembers me, so sure, throw my hat in the ring. Nothing's going to come of it. So, look, there I am. So voting started, and people started tweeting and retweeting, and it was kind of getting off the ground. And I will say, let's not pretend like my old roommate, Adam Levine, and his supermodel wife tweeting about it didn't help a little bit. I kind of had an edge. I was like, well, sorry. I cleaned after him for a couple of years, so. So I thought I really can't have a Groundhog Day moment, and the only reason I should go back is if I'm going to go back and just kill it. So I took everything I'd learned in the past and kind of realized that the most important thing was that I just had to be myself. I will never be the best pattern maker. I am not the fastest sewer. I am not the youngest or edgiest. The only thing that really sets me apart from any other artist on the planet is my strange magic potion. The combination of things that make up what I like, what I respond to, what I make, just kind of that tapestry of my brain, based on the experiences that I've had that nobody else has had. And I think we kind of downplay, I don't know, the importance of our individual experiences. No one has lived your life. That's really special. So there are things that I identified as kind of my consistent influencers, and this is kind of how I explain them. So I was born in 1981. I missed the 60s and 70s, so I will kind of forever look at them as this golden age of self-expression because I didn't have to go through them. You always kind of want what you didn't have. So the bright graphics and the stark shapes of the 60s, and then I love kind of the boho ease of the 70s, and I think a lot of the patchwork of the 70s was just watching my mom quilt and being obsessed with that. I mean, I do color blocking all day long. So also, I've always been obsessed with other cultures, maybe from growing up a white girl in Nebraska, just to put it simply. It was very homogenous where I grew up, and my father, when I was growing up, traveled internationally a lot, like 2 weeks out of every month. So he would come home with silks from China and wall hangings from South America and Doc Martens from England. But he would, back in the day when you had to develop photos, he would just show me these pictures that he would go to the museums or go to, you know, historical sites and just say, look, there's more out there, there's more. And it just kind of started my obsession with other cultures. And I grew up in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s, and there is like a scientific fact that like, she's like, you understand, okay. There's a kind of neurological connection that happens in those formative years. So when you were a teenager, you always kind of go back. I mean, look at me, come on, I'm super 90s. It just always kind of stays with you. I think that's fascinating. So all of those things had to come back with me on the show. This was some stuff I was working on in between the 2 seasons. So I walked into the workroom on episode 1 and saw a sea of mohawks and blue hair, and I thought, oh my God, everyone's so cool. What am I doing here? I love this face. Then I remembered, I know exactly what I'm doing here. So every challenge, I thought of the person living in my universe, in my brain. Who's that girl that lives within all of those inspirations? I was obsessed with making it very clear who I was designing for. Challenge 1, Nina Garcia said, I want to be this girl. And my heart exploded. I was so happy to hear that. Challenge 2, I wove a dress out of speaker wire and paper straws, and I won. I thought I was going home. You never know. And I realized that my vision could be translated into avant-garde with my eyeball dress, into red carpet, or even children's wear. They all kind of live in the same universe. And I was creating from a very euphoric, pure place, and it works. I was creating from a place of wonder and joy, and kind of tempered by a little bit of punk rock, like if you don't like it, then who cares? It was very liberating to not care. And besides just a change in my work, there was a change in me. I relaxed, I made funny faces. I was finally not nervous around Tim Gunn. We became really, really close. Every time I go to New York, we get a glass of rosé together. We still text all the time. I made friends with my other designers. I learned from them, I shared with them. And I stopped asking myself, what do the judges want? And kind of thought of every challenge as, what if this is the last thing I make on TV? What do I want to leave you with? There's Tim. So cohesion in a brand, and for me a fashion collection, doesn't mean copying yourself or rehashing the same thing or matching, but it's creating, you know, a million different moments that exist in the same universe. If that base of inspiration remains and is, you know, always fed and nourished, then cohesion and vision and brand identity comes naturally. So I had to kind of write my visual mission statement. So my overall thoughts on that show. or any totally unrealistic competition show, because there's a bunch of them. They're kind of the best and worst thing for an artist, for a person, for anyone who makes anything. It's the worst because I think a lot of us are introverts. Most of us work alone. Most of us don't love deadlines. What time did I show up today? Yeah. Most of us enjoy the process of watching our work change, changing our minds. And that also kind of leads me to why it's the best. You're forced to make very quick decisions, which are often from your gut, and that's good. So another Malcolm Gladwell book, because I am obsessed with him, is his book Blink, is about how those initial gut decisions are statistically correct. More than likely they're going to be correct. That's kind of dumbing it down. But you're also forced to defend your work and back it up, which is a really fascinating exercise. You're also just forced to pull the richest inspiration from the depths of your soul, because there isn't any inspiration in a white room with fluorescent lighting and a giant camera humming to the side of you, and probably someone yelling in the corner. I love that. Turn off your phone and go for a hike, you dummy. Because I swear, every time you step away from a problem and just completely disengage from it, do you notice how the answer just pops up? It's like you're being rewarded for taking a break. I don't know when. So to finish this story, I was lucky enough to make it to the finals of season 13. I collaborated with textile artists. Actually, a designer that I met on season 11 of Project Runway is an amazing knitter, and he knit this fabric for me, which was kind of cool. And then I drew jewelry that was manufactured by a Nashville jewelry designer. It was a really fun collaborative thing. I just want to show you that I'm a horrible sketcher, and somehow the jewelry, I'm horrible. And those sketches somehow became the gorgeous jewelry, which I'll never understand. So, spoiler alert if you didn't watch, look, I'm a horrible sketcher. I just need to make that clear, that not all fashion designers can draw those beautiful, these are my Picasso dresses. And this is kind of some stuff I've worked on now. So my new challenge, kind of after the show, is building the brand on my own, in my own voice. But my priority within that is making sure that people feel connected to the brand. And again, we're not producing in a vacuum. People need to connect and consume. And I've made a lot of decisions over the past couple years that I've been advised against. I like to take chances on, I love that picture. She looks so cool. Some of these dresses I have over here. I like to take chances on young photographers or participate in kind of punk rock fashion shows like I did on Monday. I do all my own social media, which I'm contacted all the time, like, we'll take over your Twitter, we'll take over your Instagram. Like, that's the fun part. Connecting with an audience that way is the fun part. Seeing what people react to, like I'm getting free market research by posting a dress on Instagram. I'm obsessed with it, and I'll never give it up. There are a million things I can rebel against, and a lot of the decisions I've made that business experts have told me not to make I was right in the end. Not all of them, but some of them. I'm constantly going to be balancing passion and commerce for the rest of my life. It will haunt me and keep me up at night, but my focus just has to remain on honesty and vision. And on top of that, I just hope that my parents continue to be right, that you just have to be nice and work hard. And I'm hoping a little bit weird too. So, thank you.